Hey, Kentucky, it is our special UK basketball season preview. We got three former Cats here to discuss the team, who they play this year, and whether or not they're headed to the Final Four. That's next here on Hey, Kentucky. Welcome, everybody, to the Hey Kentucky UK season preview. It is time for yet another basketball season, and we have an esteemed panel here. Jack Goose Givens, Todd Lanner, and Ashimu Evans, three former Cats. Guys, how are you?
Doing great.
A lot of great coaches in between the three of you guys that you played for as well. Now, this year's team is young, maybe the youngest in the country, the youngest of John Calipari's career, but they are number 5 in the preseason rankings, and some people project to be a Final Four team. And guys, I'd like to start with this. When you look at this year's team, considering how young they are, Jack, is this a team you think that can go all the way?
It is a team that can go all the way. Certainly get to the Final Four. I look at these young athletes, and everybody talks about how long they are. Well, they're great athletes also. Being long and not being able to play means nothing. So I'm looking forward to seeing them play.
Todd, you're used to under Calipari. I mean, they've had a ton of guys over the years. They're always young, but this one's even more young than normal. Do you think Cal is up to that task?
I think he is. What we've seen from him in the past is his ability to develop point guards, create leaders. I think we have 2 potential leaders on this team that can run it and take us a long way. So I'm really excited to see what they can do, and he's the best at it.
He is the best. Hashimu, there's a lot of guys that remind me of you in some ways. You were a guy who could play a lot of positions. Back before guys did that, you could play the 2, the 3, the 4. Cal's got a whole team of guys here that can play almost every position.
This is what I love about this team. You know, you have these young guys that can, very versatile players that can play numerous positions that do so much for us this year when they get called on.
Now let's talk about some of those guys. Jack, I want to start with Kevin Knox because he is a guy that reminds me a little bit of you in his ability to sort of. You were very smooth at least when I've seen the tapes of. I wasn't bored yet, but you were very smooth as a player, and so is Knox. He can score inside out. He's got a mid-range game. You don't see a lot of guys have that anymore. What do you think of?
Well, the thing that I like most, I mean, he's 6'9", but he gets the ball off the glass, and he's already bringing the ball up the floor for the fast break. You don't see that very often, a guy 6'9", and especially a freshman 6'9", who is comfortable enough to get it off the glass, get out on the break, and then he finds people. He can shoot the jump shot, which I love, because not a lot of guys do that anymore.
Yes.
He's one of those guys that certainly has superstar written all over him.
Is he the best player on the team? I kind of think he is, but some people will say Diallo, etc. To me, he's got to be your star.
Well, I think when you look at his versatility and the fact that he can play 2 or 3 positions and the fact that he does a number of things with and without the basketball, he would have to be considered among the top 1 or 2 players, certainly.
ESPN, by the way, is absolutely insane not to have him listed as one of the top 50 players in the country. That was an absolute travesty.
Right.
Now, Todd, you were around practice a lot last year. You saw Hamidou Diallo when a lot of guys didn't see. There may be no player that we've talked about more but seen less than Diallo. What does he bring?
Absolutely. First off, unbelievable athlete. We don't have to talk about that. Everybody saw what he did in the combine. I think he lacks the offensive versatility that Kevin Knox brings. So therefore, I think Kevin Knox is the more important versatile player. But his ability to defend and run the floor, and the fact that he can slide from the 1 to the 2 and at least bring that on the offensive end. He knows the offense in and out. He knows it from multiple positions. He's going to be a floor general, if nothing else.
My worry about him, Todd, is on the defensive end. He actually did not start the last preseason game, I think in part because of defense. Does that concern you?
It's a little bit of a concern early, but Cal's always been adamant about the fact that you're going to play defense for me or you're not going to play. The one thing I think he brings with his length is the ability to switch on pick and rolls, and a lot of Cal's defensive schematics depend on that ability.
He does bring that, and that's something some other guys have some weaknesses on, which we'll talk about. Hashimu, you love Wenyen Gabriel. He's the one returner. Folks out here have seen him play a lot. He's the only guy really on the team that played last year. Do you think he's improved? He looks better.
He's improved a lot, you know. That shot is looking real good right now. And what I like about him, he does it with a smile. And he's the energy guy. Reminds me of myself.
You did it with a smile, too.
But a lot taller, and that wingspan, 7'1", is huge. And
he
defends.
He was so thin that you wondered if he would be able to sort of match up with people. But he has bulked up. He's probably put on 20 pounds of muscle since last year.
Yeah, I think he has a great summer. You can see where he bulked up, and that shot is looking good. He's looking real confident, so I'm excited. I know you guys are excited too.
I'm very excited. Now, I think this team ultimately will succeed or fail based on the point guard position and Quade Green. And in the first 3 games, I know it's preseason, I have been really surprised at how well he has played, led the team. And, Jack, he might be a really good shooter, which is not something we saw coming in.
Well, we didn't expect him to be a shooter. I mean, nobody thought he could shoot the basketball the way he does. But what I like is he's been called kind of a throwback point guard, not so far back as I am, as I go, but he's one of those guys that seems to be thinking the game all the time, especially on the offensive end of the floor. I mean, he's always looking for ways to get the other players involved. I looked at him in practice a couple of times over the last week or so, and one thing that I noticed really quickly was Calipari was really drilling him. I mean, he's all over him, as he does all of his point guards, because those are the guys that have to be the leaders on the floor. I think he has that ability. I think because he's a thinker first, he's going to be an excellent point guard for this team.
Does he remind you at all of Tyler Ulis? You hate to give him that comparison, but he's the only guy on the team not tall, and he kind of has to play that role.
Well, that's a tough comparison, just simply because I don't know that he has Tyler's quickness. I don't know that he's as fast from one end of the floor to the other as Tyler was when it comes to handling the basketball. But when it comes to running the show, making sure guys are where they're supposed to be, and it's good because he's talking more and more in practice, so he makes sure those guys are where they're supposed to be. And Ulis was excellent at that. He got the ball to people where they liked it to score.
Now, I want to ask you about a couple of the other sort of guys that don't get talked about a lot. P.J. Washington, I love. I think there are going to be games where he leads the team in scoring. He's most definitely going to lead the team in rebounding. Are you a P.J. fan?
I am, big time. I actually met him I went and saw practice a couple times this summer. His attitude surprised me. He doesn't think anybody out there can guard him, and we need that on this team. We're going to need it without the leadership, of upperclassmen.
I look at the big guys. I'm a little worried, Ashima. I'll be honest with you. You got Nick Richards and Sasha Kalea-Jones, 2 guys that I think can provide shot blocking, but their defense is kind of sketchy a little bit, sliding their feet. I think Cal needs one of those 2 guys to step up. Do you think they will?
Of course. And we all know we need them to peak at the right time. We're going to get these guys going, and they're going to do what they need to do. And when it's time, right around SEC time going into the tournament, they're going to be ready. They're going to provide a lot for the team.
How does this team play, Jack? I mean, they're so long. I would think, there's been talk he might play zone. I never believe that until I see it. But how do you play with a team where you have all these interchangeable parts?
I've been hearing a lot from just general Kentucky fans that this is not a shooting team. I mean, they can't shoot the basketball. And frankly, I think that's a little bit overrated, especially this time of the year. The thing that you have to get from young guys, because you got to understand that 3-point shot is the easiest shot, and it flies easily. You have to teach them how to score, particularly scoring in traffic. That's not always about shooting the basketball. And so on offense, I look for them to be one that gets up and down the floor because they do have quickness along with the length. They're going to get up and down the floor. I think once they learn to play man-to-man, they're going to be a very, very good man-to-man.
They're going to run a lot. I think this team will be at its best when it runs. I've been amazed at how many points they put up in the early game. Now, they have a very difficult schedule, the Kentucky Wildcats, and when we come back, we're going to look at the schedule and a much-improved SEC, a lot better than we've seen it the last few years. This is the Hey Kentucky UK Basketball Preview. Welcome back to Hey Kentucky Basketball Preview. Now, the nation, this is a good year for college basketball. There are 5 or 6 teams at the top that can all play. Preseason number 1, a lot of people have Michigan State. You love Izzo. How good are they this year?
They're great. Miles Bridges and company are going to do some big things. And Tom always keeps a great rebounding team. They go deep. They're going to do well.
It's interesting that Michigan State is often better when they don't have the talent, but this year they do have the talent. I think on ESPN, 14 of their 20 prognosticators picked Michigan State to win the whole thing. Arizona was a lot of people's preseason prediction before the scandal. You think they're good enough even with all this turmoil, to still get to the Final Four? Miller's never been.
I think we'll find out pretty quickly. A lot of experience, well-orchestrated team. They run great things offensive and defensively year in and year out. I think they're very well coached, and again, it's going to come down to who's able to play.
This is a big year for Sean Miller. I mean, he keeps capping these teams, and they've never been to a Final Four. I think, and a lot of them expect it to happen this year.
Right.
Duke is always good. Duke is loaded. You got Grayson Allen. You got Martin Bagley, who's one of the top players in the country. Last year, Coach Mike Krzyzewski had all that, and it didn't totally come together. Do you think it will this year?
Once again, it's hard to call this early, but when you have as much talent as they have mixed in with Krzyzewski and the job he does coaching, you have to consider them as one of the top four.
Would you all agree that Calipari and Krzyzewski are kind of the two premier coaches in America? I mean, I think it's not that others aren't great, but they kind of have set themselves apart in these last few years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think they have, and I think the reason is because those are the two schools that the most talented players want to go to. They're always listed. Yeah. Kentucky or Duke is, and no matter where they end up, they're always listed.
Do you think Tubby will end up getting it done down there at Memphis?
No, absolutely. Tubby tends to go to a program and then he changes it around, bring in new guys. I think they're going to make some noise and go to the tournament.
So the thing about Memphis is you got to recruit the city of Memphis, and I think that'll ultimately depend on how he does. All right, time to pick our Final Four. Now, there are a lot of good teams around college basketball this year, so I'm going to let each of you go. Todd, I'll start with you. Who is your Final Four?
I got Duke, UK, Michigan State, and the fourth is toss-up. I like Arizona.
Well, let's start with Arizona.
I'm a little sketched out, though, about
who wins the national championship?
UK.
UK, all right. Jack, what do you got?
Well, this time of the year, it's so early, I pick coaches. I don't pick teams because, how do you know? So my Final Four, Duke, Kentucky, Michigan State, and, of course, Kansas.
So you're taking the Champions Classic. I've been saying the Champions Classic next
easy
week.
Pick. I mean, that's the easy pick.
It's the Champions Classic again in the Final Four. What about you?
I have Florida, Michigan State, Duke, and, of course, Kentucky.
You have Florida. You really like this Florida team.
I'm going with experience with Florida.
Well, a lot of people forget Florida almost made the Final Four last year. I've got Kentucky, Duke, and Michigan State. I think those are the three best teams. And I'm telling you, Wichita State. They go to the Final Four. I think Wichita State, a lot of people don't realize they're in a new conference. They're in the American. I think one of the things that's happened with them is they don't get good tests during the season. They will this year. And when they go to the tournament, when they see a team like Kentucky, it won't be a crazy amount of talent that they haven't seen before. We're going to take a break. When we come back, all three of these guys are going to pick their MVPs for the UK team and more. This is the Hey Kentucky UK Preview Show. Welcome back to the Hey Kentucky UK Preview Show. Guys, tell me who's the most important player for UK success this year. I'll start with you, Jack.
Can I pick a position?
Yes.
Because I'm going to say Quade Green and then Shea Alexander.
So the point guard.
So the point guard spot. They have to have good point guard.
I would agree with that. Todd?
I'm going to go most important, Kevin Knox.
Yeah, best player. He's got to be the one to do it.
Got to be.
Hashimu?
I'm going to go with Sudan's finest, Winyan Gabriel.
You're a Winyan Gabriel man crush.
I like Winyan. I really go with you there.
For me, I'm actually going to say they got to have one of these big men step up. I don't care which one it is, but between Nick Reed, Rhett Richards, and Sasha Clea-Jones, they got to have one. Guys, thank you very much. Great former Cats letting us know their opinion. Tomorrow night we are off because of football. Stupid NFL preempts us, but we will be back on Friday. Thank you for watching. This has been the Hey Kentucky UK Preview Show.